everybody. Welcome to another episode of Paranormal Pursuit Podcast. And today we have Sandy and myself, Maya. And we're going to be discussing reincarnation, which is a very popular, very interesting topic. Sandy, in your words, what would you describe reincarnation as being? Like, do you believe that we always reincarnate? Do you think that it's some people's first time here on Earth?
So I think absolutely reincarnation is the recycling of the soul. The soul lives many, many lifetimes. For some, yes, it may be their first one here. You know, we have to talk about soul origin. Souls come from different places, not just this planet.
Right, yes.
But that's how souls recycle themselves. So that, you know, the whole pattern of a soul is basically you're born, you live your life. Your life is made of different contracts. You know, certain lessons that you need to learn emotionally in order to ascend energetically to be a much higher energy. Cross over, you go through all these levels on the other side, you get jobs while you're there, similar to the jobs here, you have to work on ascending, you meet your creator, you look at your Akashic record, you decide, what have I learned, what have I earned, what's my karma, what's my karmic debt, am I going back again, and as what, and what contracts do I want to write? That's a really quick description of the soul's journey.
Well, you just brought up the Akashic Records, which I think that we should maybe touch on that. But funny enough, the other day I had sent you a picture of it, that the card, Angel Metatron, fell to the ground. And I was like, oh, I guess we're supposed to talk about this. And then I was reading up on him. It said that his sign was 1111, which I always see. And that apparently he's one of the few angels that they said was a human at one time. And that this is what it said. And that like he's in charge very much. One of his things is the Akashic Records to help record everything. Do you want to explain to our viewers what Akashic Records actually are?
Yeah, sure. So that is correct about some of the archangels. There's more than one. Metatron is one of them exactly, who has existed and lived as a human and now is what's called an ascended master. So what that means is he has mastered or gained mastery over all of the lessons, all of the contracts in all of his life. There's no need or no reason for him to choose, and I use the word choose specifically, to return back to our plane to continue along. There's no need. Sometimes the angels, archangels, angels, or other souls will, even though they've ascended mastery, may return to the specific purpose of assisting, either global intervention or individual intervention.
You could probably use some global intervention right now. Please, Metatron, help us out. Help your extended family out.
Every show, I mean, we can say this one every time we do it. So Akashic Records are really interesting. So there's ethereal layers. You know, what we can't really see them. And on the other side, literally, each soul has a recording. And the recording starts recording at its origin, its initiation to our plane, our planet, our Earth. And with every single instance, this record is updated. And so it's a continuous record of a soul's existences, all of the soul's life. It includes, it includes data, or however you want to refer to it. It's almost like you think of computer program.
Well, I was just going to say, we think we have good technology, not compared to the universe.
No, definitely not. And it records, literally, it records karma. It records what contracts are fulfilled. If they are fulfilled, why? If they're not, why not? So it's a record. Every soul has this record. And when the soul returns home, as a result of, deceasing, as I said earlier, one of the last things that's done is the soul ascends. First it goes to what we call heaven, and then it ascends through these certain levels that it has to work its way through. There's 8 or about 10 actually. And then at that final level of ascension, the soul meets with its creator, and they review the Akashic record together, and that's when the determination in joint, the determination is made whether or not to return, what has to be continued to be worked on, et cetera, et cetera. So it is that record that is viewed. Now we can work on, I do Akashic records readings now. I know Angelique does. There are many people that do. So the purpose of reading that record for somebody while they're alive, and there's many locks and safety nets on it. You are not privileged to have all the information.
Right.
Whether you're reading,
You did your DNA thumbprint, right?
that's what I call it. I call it the soul's imprint. And the whole purpose of not being able to have access for all of it is there's no get out of jail free card.
That would be a lot to handle too. Our minds aren't capable of taking all that in at one time. They may explode into a million pieces.
Pretty much. I'm getting into the role of like pressure.
Right.
Information that you do have access to is solely, no pun intended, for the purpose of revealing it, whether it's about this existence or a previous existence, revealing it to the person you're reading for, sitting in front of you, to shed some light, to illuminate possibly details about a contract that they're not quite grasping because it's unconscious, for purpose of assisting them to ascend more rapidly in this existence. So Akashic Record is very interesting. One of the things that's really neat when I do readings, I think it's really cool, and I do this thing where I do mentoring with people. Spirit allows me to see the past existence where the lessons, the contracts that the person is working on in this existence originated. And they give the individual, the soul, the person I'm working with, what they call like a homework assignment. And so the person has to go in a meditation to the soul in that point in time in their past life, send it forgiveness, send it love, and the healing transcends time, space, and reality into
Gina,
very, very cool.
I could see that because I've said to you before that in my past, I had 3 entities I believe were Palladian visit me, and they were like, oh, it's okay, you could get out of this contract, and it's okay, go get married, have a white picket fence, have the kids. And I was like, like, I don't want to be after this lifetime. Oh, how'd you do? Just couldn't hack it, like, I'd be devastated on the other side. I'd be like, no, that was like 90 years. I know time is relative, but yeah, I think a lot of mission souls, and I think definitely a lot of hybrids feel that more than possibly because they're just more aware of it, that they feel like they have this mission that needs to be accomplished. Unfortunately, a lot of times the mission is not clear. Let me ask you this: what would you recommend for people that kind of feel like they're lost on their path right now, and they know that they have a mission, but they're not really sure what it is? What would you recommend that they could do to have more clarity?
That's a good question. So there's generic soul purpose, meaning all souls have the generic purpose, which we were already discussing. Every soul descends, reincarnates into an existence to truly learn how to have emotions and experience the gamut of emotions, particularly the lower vibration. Because remember, in ascension on the other side, it's all higher vibration, pure love and peace energy that we can't even fathom while we're here. So the soul comes back down here to have the lower energy vibrations, those emotions associated with that, like the fear and the doubt and the anger, and to be able to work those through to a point where they can release it. They don't allow themselves to live in fear or worry or anger, and they also have a level of forgiveness and love for others. So that's the generic purpose for all souls will live. Then we have our own specific individual purpose. Like, I know my purpose, and it has shifted. It's been more than one. One was to be what I call my other career, the psychologist. And now I know that the purpose also is this purpose, to be able to assist people and do for them what you were just talking about, to be able to help them learn how to connect with the other side. So if every soul has a purpose, a specific purpose. We have a lot of souls, a lot of people that are walking around that are very lost, and they're not in touch with them because they're blocked by their emotions.
Yeah, emotions can do that to you. It's like you're stuck in a tornado, and every now and then you can be in the eye of it, and you can look up and see the clear sky.
And so, and that's a great analogy. So, our job as workers in this realm is to help them, suspend them in that clear eye where you can see the clear sky. And that's one of the ways it really assists. I tell people all the time, regardless of what you're trying to do, you have to get into a meditative state,
Right.
because you have to do that in order to connect with the other side.
Mm-hmm.
Meditative state, we can describe meditation in many, many different ways. Sometimes for me, I'm at the gym on the elliptical and I'm zoned out because I'm meditating. It doesn't have to always be,
Yeah, it just takes like 10 minutes of time of just being at peace with yourself and allowing. Because I know our heads are so busy with billions. I mean, my thought has a billion thoughts going on at once on all different levels. And when I can just clear my mind for a few, that's when information is allowed to come in. If you're constantly talking within your head, it's hard. It's hard for them to slip in a conversation, I suppose.
You want to just be in the moment. You want to just be. And when you're meditating, when you're in that kind of state of consciousness, you're right, it's opening pathways, portals, doorways for information to come through. And that's when you want to ask the other side, please assist me in understanding my soul's journey, understanding my soul's purpose. What contracts am I here to fulfill? What am I not learning? How can I learn them? That's when you really want to answer the other side all the questions. Eventually, if you answer and you're patient, you'll receive, you'll receive, if you listen rather and you're patient, you'll receive answers. And you become, when you're so stuck at that, you're angry, forgive,
right.
You're never gonna know your soul's purpose because you're stuck in such deep emotion.
Well,
when you start to feel joy, and you start to feel love, and you have compassion for those around you, that's when, in such a light, loving energy, that's when you start to understand why you're here, what you're here to do.
Well, and I've found too that for me and maybe for others out there, I think it's called the beta music, the alpha beta music. It kind of puts you in that state of mind. It's that very kind of vibrational. I don't know how to explain it, but I think it's called alpha beta music. I believe it's called. Puts you in that state of mind. As soon as I hear that music, my body gets all floaty, and I'm like, all right, here we go.
Yeah, there's as humans on this planet, we are only capable of hearing a certain dimension of hertz sound. There are sounds that, sound affects everything. Sound affects energy, so sound affects us. It's very human. There are certain sounds like binaural beats that we have found mimic the healing energy from the other side. And when you listen to certain particular hertz, like I think 380 is one particular hertz, and that's a healing beat.
Mm-hmm.
There are binaural beats at different hertz levels that have different purposes, and they actually, the vibration in them affects
you can feel it.
And so that's when you listen to that type of sound, and I wanted to say music because it's sound.
Right, yes.
That actually helps you open up. It helps you calm, and it helps you open up to be in a certain state of consciousness where you can actually receive from spirit. That's correct.
No, let's go back.
People, go ahead.
I was going to say, let's go back to reincarnation for a minute. So let's say that a soul, a person dies tragically. And I guess it would depend on the soul too. Do you think that because you have to go, you say, like, to cross over before you come back, but let's say that a soul dies tragically and they're not ready to go anywhere yet. They still feel like their mission here on this planet is not complete. Can they still complete their mission that they had for this particular lifetime, even though they lost their physical body spiritually? Can they still try to complete their mission here, maybe through the actions of others? Like somebody like you that can connect with entities on the other side, maybe or maybe there's some unfinished business that's not done yet. And there's two different, I know that we could touch on both. There's the ones that are lost, that perhaps don't know that they've passed on, but let's start with the ones that they're aware of it. And it was something tragic, maybe they felt like they were taken too soon and their mission was not complete. Can they complete that mission still before ascending and going to the other side?
Yeah, those are actually excellent points, excellent questions and things for us to touch upon. So if you remember before when we first started speaking, I was explaining how when the souls cross over, um, you're at first you're met by greeters, and greeters are deceased individuals that are normally part of your soul family and relatives. And I apologize if
I was just going to say, or one of your animals that perhaps passed on, and then look, cue the puppy. No, the puppy knows.
and we hear the
The puppy
barking.
knows what exactly what she's doing.
Well, all three of them decided to bark.
Yeah.
So, the greeters come and they cross you over. And so when you're going through, and I'll talk about the lost souls in a second. When you're going through, if you heard me mention before, there are 8 to 10 different levels
Right.
on the other side. The soul's energy is the same energy at all times, whether you have a body that you're inhabiting or not. And so it's the energy of the soul that we're talking about. So in those 8 to 10 levels, the soul is given opportunity. One thing is it's given opportunity to continue to work on the contracts that it didn't fulfill well here on the other side. And there's ways to do that energetically. They're also given, every soul is given a job. Many of the souls are given jobs to contact or to, whether it's in consciousness or not, to assist the soul that's still living, to assist the soul that's here, their journey and their lessons. Now, some souls, whether it's a soul that is, for whatever reason, is going to be what we're going to call feeling lost, it's very common for most souls when they first cross over to be disoriented, to not realize that they've left this plane and they're in that plane because of the energy, the huge shift. And so most souls kind of navigate quickly, and that's why there's the greeters to help you through. But some souls do get stuck because, for whatever reason, emotionally, they're still feeling the human emotion that's here bound on this plane. They're also feeling tremendous grief from a family member, maybe, and so it's really hard for them to move forward. Or it's a soul who, as you're describing, even though the contract was that they were supposed to have a quick, tragic death, they may be affected by that contract, and so they're almost like a deer in headlights is what I would say. And so we call them lost. And they can be, the way we understand time, which is linear, they can be in this in-between state. In other words, here's us, right? Here's Earth, and here's your first level of ascension, and there's this in-between state, and they can be there, the way we understand time, for many, 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 many years, until someone here on this plane, with assistance from those on the other side, usher that soul through.
Right.
And someone who does the work that we do, right? Someone who does the work that we do can actually assist that soul in crossing and not being stuck.
But can that soul still finish their contract? That even, okay, so let's say that they didn't get to exactly finish their mission here, their contract for this lifetime. Can they still help finish it through others on the other side? In other words, they're like, can you renegotiate your contracts as time goes on, either embodied or unembodied, or disembodied?
So those are two different things, actually. I'll answer the first one first. So no soul will complete all contracts each lifetime.
Right.
There's always something that gets carried over.
Oh.
When a soul does, which is the rarity, complete everything, that's an ascended master.
Right.
As we talked about before. However, there are such things, and yet, so yes, you can continue to work on some of the contracts and complete some of them while on the other side before you reincarnate. And then, in addition to that, there is also something different, which is a renegotiation of contracts. Sometimes the soul, while it's here, on this plane live, can renegotiate in consciousness when they're in that meditative state and they have some way of connecting with the source of oneness. And sometimes, while the soul is on the other side, it can renegotiate. For instance, and I saw this with my own family, my brother-in-law was diagnosed with terminal disease.
I'm sorry.
And, he's great now, though. Thank you, but he's great now. And this is the amazing part of all of this, and it's an explanation of a renegotiation. And so his family was called. You've got to come, say your goodbyes. His mother, who was deceased already, came through and was explaining to me that she was renegotiating her energy to help not change his destiny, because we can't do that, but to help extend his life. And so this is how this happens. So now she's in these 8 to 10 labels. Say, for instance, she was at level 5. She had to take some of her energy, right? Some of her karmic.
That's a mother's love.
And oh my God, yeah, and exchange it. So say she was at level 5, she dropped out to 2 again, so that she could offer that. Now this is all done on a slow level, it's all unconscious, so that she could offer that to him. Well, sure enough, 5 years later, he's a perfect picture of health. He's
Wow.
still alive.
Wow.
So that's a renegotiation of contract, absolutely, from someone from other side to our zone. Now, someone here could literally say, for instance, myself, who's in this realm, who understands how to connect. Say, for instance, I've decided that, I have a friend who's really ill and I want to help them out. I can try to renegotiate one of my contracts and sign on to take another load, a heavier load. To learn how to deal with abandonment. I might actually renegotiate and say to the other side, listen, I'm going to do this. Bring it on even harder. Make it
Oh no.
But please assist and take that karmic debt. I'll incur it, but I'm giving my energy to this particular soul, this friend. Again, I can't change.
I think the only person I would do that for would be my son. To be honest with you. No, here.
It's not much different than when we hear, oh, so and so is giving a kidney for so and so.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the same.
Right. True. No, I've always kind of pictured that through reincarnation, and you tell me what your thoughts on this, that I feel like we kind of always come down with the same pod. So think of dolphins. That's how I think of it. Dolphins have huge pods, maybe over 100. However, they have their close family, right? Like maybe there's like 7 or 8 of them that are super close with each other. So I almost feel like my son and I have been brother and sister in another lifetime. He even told me that before he was born. He's like, we've known each other for a long time. I think this is our first lifetime as mother and son. But I feel like we often come back down with our same pod. And obviously, if we have hundreds in our pod, not every lifetime, maybe one's a spirit guide, maybe one's maybe one lifetime not at all. But do you believe that we often choose to come back down with the same people, the same pod?
Yeah. So what you're saying is actually a fact. And as you know, and I've mentioned before, I've been pronounced dead twice. I've been
Yes.
over. I'm on the other side all the time. So whatever I'm speaking, I haven't read in the book. I'm literally channeling and through my experiences. And so, yes, what you're saying is true. And we here call it a soul family. And what that means is the same group of souls comes together over and over again. And you're right. Your relationship or experience can be different, and usually is every single time. However, you usually are all coming together. But understand this, time for us linear confuses everybody. So for instance, so let's just say my spouse and I are here together, and I deceased at, say, the age of 30, and my spouse lives till 90. So now clearly there's 60-year difference. However, on the other side,
there is none.
Time is simultaneous, right? It doesn't, right? There's no. This is what confuses people. So in essence, my spouse and I, when we go through Akashic Records, can come back together literally in the same time frame as brother and sister, or teacher and pupil, or et cetera, et cetera. So absolutely, it's the linear time that confuses people with this concept. But it's called soul family. And just like every soul before, and I forgot to throw this in when you asked about soul purpose, we come down with this little computer chip in us. It's called soul.
I've always thought that.
That's why when a baby is born, because they still have access to that information, they're not tainted by unlearned contract yet. Everything is totally fulfilled at birth. Okay, and then it's almost like then you start unlearning.
Yeah, like Benjamin Button, right?
Yes. That's why you'll see the babies. They're talking spirit. They know everything.
Yeah.
They know what's going on. But we come down with this information. It's included for us. It's called soul imprint. And so what happens sometimes in Kundalini rising, or what happens when you go into meditation, which is why you need to go into meditation,
Yes.
you start to have consciousness of Akashic record and existences called soul imprint. Every soul comes with it. It's your soul's journey. It's almost like a thumbprint. Everybody's is different.
Well, I told you that I don't remember. There's some lifetimes that I feel like I remember. I feel like I might have been choked in a lifetime because nothing tight could go on my neck. I get like all freaked out and like, but you know, I remember my very first existence, and all I remember of it was I was just little tiny light, this little orb floating around, really just content in my just floating around, until one day I saw another little speck of light and we kind of bumped into each other, and then bam, a color was created. And then I guess it just went on from then, and then skipped to, 20 billion years later, here I am,
And somehow I'm sure there were a lot more lights.
Yeah, there was. So, I mean, even that, I was going to say, so I feel like even that is from what you were talking about, the chip, the DNA chip, the soul imprint chip.
I had a really interesting experience. So as a psychologist, one of my colleagues, they all know what I do, was working with a patient who had a very intense phobia of water. But I mean to the point, not just I won't go near the ocean, to the point where even if the water was running in the sink, or they had a glass, or they'd have anxiety.
Wow.
So they tried, the therapist and other individuals worked with this person, medication, therapeutic intervention, not successful. And so he took a chance. He said, do you think you might, can you try, is there anything that you can do? Can you help this person out? So I did Akashic readings with the person, more than one. And I was able to find out that in more than one lifetime.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Particular, so this person drowned in more than one lifetime.
I was going to say.
Flogged, and it was several lifetimes where water was the cause of death. So me being able to pull this information out and to present it to them in the appropriate way started to help them literally, now that they had purpose and they had
awareness.
I was able to work with them in awareness in a meditative state and literally help them to reduce anxiety to the point where it's almost 85-90% successful over a course of time. So, this is where, to me, this is what's so fascinating, because the field of psychology is so very much connected to working in this realm as well. But that's a perfect example of where being able to connect with someone and open up their record or their soul imprint, to let them know, hey, yeah, this is why you're afraid of water. You drown 99 times.
Yeah, and all of a sudden it makes sense, and then you realize. Now here's another question. So, for example, before I had my son, we made a contract. I was like, well, look, are you sure you want to come down now? Because I am a young, single mother, teenager. Are you out of your mind? Like, don't you want to wait? And he's like, no, I need to come now. He even presented himself as a female just because at that time, a little mini-me kind of seemed to, you know what I mean? Like, he didn't say what sex he was. Very smart, very smart. Now, I'm so happy I had a boy, because let's face it, us females can be a lot more worrisome, right? And so I knew that, and I said, look, that's fine, but you have to be you have to have a mission, you have to be evolved. In other words, don't be that teenager that's stealing my car. And he honestly is a very, very evolved soul, without a doubt. Do you think it's possible? Yeah, I mean, absolutely is. Yeah. Much more than I am on a lot of levels, let me tell you something. So do you think it's possible for souls to not do that? In other words, that they just slip in. In other words, they cut the line. So they didn't have that contract with you, and maybe you as the mother aren't paying attention, or somehow they're just able to slip in and cut the line without a contract. Does that ever happen? But like the Jeffrey Dahmers, you know what I mean? Like, his parents seem like normal, and that type of a deal.
So I understand the question. I understand why it would seem that way, to use the terminology, that somebody slipped in.
Right.
So yes and no, and here's the yes. The yes part is it's always part of a contract. Always part of a contract. And contracts aren't broken the way they are here. However, remember I talked about renegotiation? So, for instance, using the example of you and your son. So it might have been that
He told me he was here early. He told me he was here early. Yeah.
because on his part, unawareness on yours, he may have renegotiated for whatever reason that
Yes.
truly did have a reason for you, but you weren't aware of it because you
Yes.
couldn't
Oh,
be. So,
I was actually somewhat aware that because he told me. He said I'm here early, but it's necessary. Like, trust me, and I'm like, I trust you. Here we go.
so for most people, though, because you do this and you're in contact and you understand, but for most people, it's the answer to what you're asking is that so it's not they're not slipping in, they kind of renegotiate. So they remember destiny's not changed, but we can change the parameters, we can change the
The
circumstances.
path that you get there. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and so that's the answer to that question. Yes, but it's contracts are never broken. Not okay on the other side. Doesn't happen.
Do you think people come back too soon? In other words, like I've had visions of myself like at like Woodstock, and I was like, oh, I was definitely like a flower child type of a deal. But then, and I actually think that I probably died of a drug overdose accidentally. I don't know why I've had that vision, but then I was like, well, but my mom was already alive then. I must have came back pretty fast. So because there's no such thing as time. I understand that, but do you think that people reincarnate quickly? I know that maybe for some people it's it's they great granddaughter or something like that. But and then can you come back too quickly? Is it up to just you?
So okay, the answer to all of that. Again, right, keeping in mind time doesn't exist
Yes.
here.
Yeah. That's the.
So remember, I said you meet with your final stages. You meet with your creator, and if, I'll repeat, you decide together. However, however, I, the soul, may say to the creator, I really want to go back, like
That's
now.
what
I
I
really
did.
want to
So what
learn.
I did.
I don't doubt that.
Patience has never been my virtue.
I know that. And so the creator, our creator's job is to allow us to be. It's
I was like, I'm ready, send me back in. And then I'm like, what did I do? No, just kidding.
so there may be a warning. Well, I don't think it's best, but okay. So that's one answer
I
to that.
guess that's why you could say live
Another,
and learn, right?
live and learn, and unfortunately, many live and do not learn. Another answer to that is sometimes, you have the choice to when you see your Akashic record to hang out up there as long as you want, to come back really fast. Again, that's all part of the choice. You never make the choice alone. It's always in discussion, but you never are in control of the complete choice. So to answer your question, yes, some people may come back very soon, may come back in essence sooner to find a different way. In other words, have so many lessons that they didn't learn in the past life, and they're like, yeah, you know what, I'm going to take them all on again.
I could
Bad
do
choice.
it. Yeah, no, too, yeah. Though that's how you get anxiety
Bad.
attacks, and that's how you get, because it's just too much energy for your body to handle all at once. Now, excuse me, what advice would you give to somebody that that lost a loved one, especially if they lost a loved one tragically, say like before their time? What comfort could you, words of wisdom that you could, I mean, like especially like now with COVID. I mean, we've had almost over 700,000 people pass away. Some older, fine, but people that died young, too young. Or especially if somebody died tragically, what could you say to their family members to help them understand and to help possibly with the grief?
Unfortunately, commentary on COVID, we've lost, many.
I mean, think about the world. Yeah, we have a lot of people grieving on this planet right now.
Yeah, and I'm not minimizing the process of grief.
Right, of
It's
course.
essential, and it's different for everyone.
Of course.
It's time, the duration, the intensity. However, that I do want to comment on. Grief is a lower vibration. It's pain, and so what you said. Think about all of this low vibration, all this energy that's out there because of these losses. that's something to consider when we talk about, why is there such a depressed, oppressed energy, and why are we
Especially lately.
involving, you know, exactly, The second thing is, the losses, the losses. What I try to help people understand, and I know it's so difficult with this grief, it's so
Yes.
painful, is to try to always understand and remember that the soul is eternal.
Right.
That just because you can't see anybody and experience them through your five senses, to try to understand that they're still there, the emotions are there, the connection is there, especially on this realm, you can connect with them. And I teach people all the time, you can do what I do. You're no different than I am. It's a matter of entering levels.
Yeah, you could still be in contact with them. Just you have to be aware of it and be in that state of mind to be able to. Yeah, I mean, 'cause you think that there's just, I mean, it's certainly it's not easy for people that lost somebody, especially if it's tragic, or especially if somebody died too young. Well, I guess you can't say too young because perhaps it was, but now here's something else too. I've heard this. They say that you have 3 exit points in your life. Now, I don't know if that's true or not. That in other words, let's say that. Like, in other words, do you think that it's predestined, or do you think that, I guess you said you could renegotiate, though. Like obviously you weren't meant to pass on. You were pronounced dead twice.
They don't want me on the other side.
They're like, you ain't done yet. They're like, oh, get back down there. You're like, oh, okay, you're right.
So, yeah, another interesting question, of course. So, I don't know about the 3 exit.
I mean, I've heard that. I don't know if it's...
Yeah, I'm not familiar with it, but then again, I don't read anything.
Right.
Tells me don't read. But I do know this. This is something that's interesting. So, similar to... I'll explain so it makes sense. Okay. Yes, everything from when you're up there and you make the contracts, when you come down, every single nanosecond of your life is predetermined. However, similar to when there's a movie with like 3 or 4 different endings, every single action, every experience that has already been developed as your contract allows more than one choice. For instance, let's just say today I'm going to the store and I can take route A or route B. If I choose route A, which I'm not conscious of any of this yet, if I choose route A, I get to the store safely and I'm okay. If I choose route B, I'm in an accident. Now, those are already predetermined. So Spirit allows us, when we build our life that we want to come back down into, we're allowed all these different routes with certain choices built in, even though the destiny's been predetermined. That's why I say we cannot change destiny. We can change path, duration, extension, intensity, etc., time frame, etc., etc.
I always kind of think of it as, if you're in darkness and you light a small light, like a candle or whatever, you could see the path directly in front of you, but we can only take it this much at a time. Once you get a little bit further, there may be 2 different ways to go, and you can only see so far ahead.
Well, that's like people, I have this discussion a lot when I classes or whatever. Free will, and I tell everybody we don't have free will, and that's how I explain it. Literally the example I just offered you. So what the free will truly means is not that in each moment you're all of a sudden making a free will decision. You think you are, but it's already been predetermined on the other side when you developed your whole course.
Kind of takes the burden off in some ways.
Yes, and I think the opposite for others, where there's so much anxiety. Well, what do you mean I can't make a decision right now?
That's amazing. Well, do you have anything else that you want to add on reincarnation?
As I add almost on every single end of every meditate every day.
Yeah, I've been starting to do that. Not every day, but almost every day. I'm getting better at it. I'm like finding that 15-20 minutes just to
decompose. I don't mean physically.
Right.
It is essential. It truly is essential for us. If there's anything, one thing, if I can only tell people one thing that would help them advance spiritually and just develop as a soul in a much more ascended rate, it is meditation, the connection that we have in meditation. You cannot mask or mimic anywhere else. So, but one more commentary about
Yeah.
reincarnation. So yes, reincarnation is real. It exists, absolutely. And if we can try to remember whenever we're in those points of consciousness, whether it's through meditative state, whether it's that we're with a group of individuals that perhaps are doing a group meditation, or with like-minded individuals, any of those opportunities that allow us to enter a portal of connection, we need to take advantage of that, because that truly is a gift that every soul has as part of that soul imprint that allows us to be much more closer to the energy of our Creator and the level of love that's only known on the other side. And so that's something I think is so important to remind people. You come back every time, again and again, to try to get as close as possible to that level of energy.
That was so beautifully said. That was beautifully said, Sandy. Well, everybody, there you have it. Thanks for tuning in, and we will see you next time. Take care.
See you next time. Bye-bye.